Hi, I've received a lot of positive feedback on my last two videos about the Oracle Touch, so thank you for that. And Tyrone Matthew asked if I could produce an in-depth video covering the general maintenance and cleaning steps that are required. So this one's for you, Tyrone, but it's also for people that maybe own one of these machines or are unsure how to clean it or when to clean it, and also for people that are contemplating buying one of these machines and just want to know, well, how much extra workload am I going to be giving myself if I choose to buy this machine? So a few weeks ago, I got a message pop up on the display that told me that it was time to change the water filter. Now that comes up every 3 months, and I usually let it go a bit longer because what I found is if your water supply is clean, you probably don't need to replace it that regularly. So I push mine out to 6 months, and I've not had any trouble doing that over the 3 years that I've owned the machine. And then a week ago, this other message popped up that told me it's time to clean the group head. And so that one comes up probably every 6 months, and you really shouldn't ignore that. It needs to be done when it's due. So I thought I'll just hold that back so I can do everything together and make this video that Tyrone asked for. So in addition to covering off the water filter clean and change and cleaning the group head, I'm also going to today cover off two other areas that need to be done on a regular basis. The first one is up here in the bean hopper. There's a conical burr grinder inside there that needs to be cleaned out occasionally. It is only occasionally, I must be honest, I only do that probably once a year, and I get in there with a brush and clean out all of the old bits of a bean that have got stuck to the burrs. And when I'm doing that, I also come down here and clean the tamping wheel that's in the bottom here and the chute that carries the coffee down to the tamping wheel. So I'll step you through how we do that. And the last thing is that needs to be done more frequently than those other things. I would say this does have to be done probably every couple of months. That's how often I would do it, and that's to properly clean the steam wand, because over time the milk will cake onto that wand and you'll get a hard crust on there, and there's 4 little holes in the bottom of the nozzle where the steam blasts out. Those holes will get blocked up with the stale milk that gets burnt in around those holes, so that has to be done fairly frequently. So those are the things I'm going to cover off today. Now the items that we'll need for this: firstly, we're going to need these cleaning tablets. They come in a box of 8, and you order those online from the Breville website. We're also going to need this, which is a cleaning powder, and we mix that into a solution that we use to then clean that steam wand. That dissolves all the caked on milk. We're going to need a filter, replacement filter. So they come in a box of 2. Again, you order those from the Breville website. And in addition to that, I've got over here some water in my normal jug that I steam the milk in. In there now I've just got water, a cupful of water, which is what we'll use to clean the wand and soak it. And then we need the tools. So the tools, as I've said before, they're conveniently stowed underneath here. So you take the drip tray out, and inside here you'll find there's a little tray that has all the tools that we need. So out of here, we're going to need this, which is, they call this a cleaning disc. It's a little rubber disc. We're going to take the single basket. So normally I've got the double basket inside the group handle. Today we're using the single basket. And then there's some brushes that we need. This brush here with the long bristles, that's to clean those burrs up in the top. This little brush here, you would have remembered this from the other video. It's got a magnet in the top of it that we use to take the tamping wheel out. And on the other end, you've got this very small little brush which we use to clean the chute where the coffee comes down to the tamping wheel. Now, in addition to that, I always like to use this little thing here. I don't know if you'll be able to pick this up on the video, but there's a little bit of wire comes out of this handle, and that is used to clean those jet holes that are in the bottom of the steam wand that I mentioned. And while I'm in here, I'm just going to show you this as well. This brush here doesn't come from Breville. I ordered this online from Coffee Parts, but the reason I got it is because These bristles here are very stiff, and this is an excellent tool for getting up inside the group head. So up inside there's a silicon seal that seals around the group handle, and that seal gets quite dirty over time with coffee. And if it gets too dirty, it'll start to leak around the edges of the group handle. And also, if it gets too dirty, I find that the basket sometimes sticks up in there. So you pull the group handle out and the basket doesn't come with it. And that's usually a sign that that seal is getting a bit dirty. So that's worth ordering yourself one of those online from Coffee Parts. Okay, so those are all the bits that we're going to need for the job today. So I'll put that tray back in there now. And we're pretty much ready to start. And I'm going to do these things in a particular order. You wouldn't normally be doing all these jobs in one go, so don't get too depressed about how much work goes on here in this video. They come up at different cycles, but I'm doing them all today, and because I'm doing them all together, it makes sense to do them in a logical order. And so the order that I'm going to do these in is, firstly, I'm going to start with the back here and replace the water filter that needs replacing and just clean out that water reservoir while I'm in there. Then after I've done that, I'm going to come around the front here and I'm going to start the process for cleaning the steam wand. And this is quite a lengthy process. It takes 20 minutes all up. A lot of that 20 minutes is just time where you're waiting for things to soak and for the chemical to do its job. So while that's happening, I'll kick that off, and then while that's happening, I'll come back here and we'll clean the burrs and we'll clean the tamping wheel and tamping area. And then we'll go on to run the cycle that cleans the group head and all of the water lines that go into there. By the time we've done that, it'll be time to come back to this steam wand and complete the job on that. And once we've done that, well, we're pretty much done. We can make ourselves a coffee and put our feet up. So, water reservoir and filter, first thing to do. So I'm going to take this out, and you should remember from before that in one of my other videos I was pointing out how convenient this little jockey wheel is, and this is where it really comes into play, because I can now spin this around on the jockey wheel and I can reach in behind here and I can pull out the water reservoir. And so there's the water reservoir there, and inside the top there you can see there's a white thing. That's the actual filter, so that needs to be replaced because it's now 6 months old. And so to get that out, we just grab hold of that and pull it upwards. Pull it upwards, like so. We take that out. I'm just going to put the water reservoir over in my sink for the moment because I want to give that a rinse. Always give that a rinse and a bit of a clean because you can get a bit of scum around there over time. So with this, that's the filter, the white bit, and this cage that holds it together. We just push the two thumb pieces on the side there to pop that out, and that comes out very easily like so. So that one can go in the bin. I've got a new one here, which I'll open up. And this one here, what I wanted to show you is in the top of it there's a wheel that's got the months in it from 1 to 12. And the idea is that you pick the month that you're putting this in and you dial that up, and that's a 3-month window. So I've set this to June because we're just about to start June, and this is saying that it has to come out by August. But as I said, I wouldn't be removing that in August. I'd be stretching that out for another 3 months to the end of the year. So then we pop that back in there and we clip this back on here, and that's all ready to go back in the water tank. However, I do want to clean the tank first, so I'm just going over to the sink now and I'll just rinse that out and give that a bit of a clean. Tip the water out. I just use my normal dish cleaning brush in here with a bit of soap in there and give that a bit of a clean and then a bit of a rinse. And then we know we're starting with a nice clean tank, like so. Need to dry the outside of that. It's very clever how they've designed this so that you can actually pull the tank out of the back of the machine while it's still got water in it, and none of the water runs out. It's got a nice little valve on the bottom of it that that stops that from happening. Okay, now before I pop it back in, I'm just going to put some fresh water in there because we're going to need some water in the tank to do the job that we have to do, or jobs that we have to do. So I'll just fill that up to about maybe a quarter, and that can then go back in the machine. Before I put it back in the machine, of course, we need to put the filter back into it, the new filter. So the new filter just gets plugged back in down the bottom there, onto that fitting at the bottom. It just pushes on like so. And also having the water in there, that means it can soak into the granules that are in the filter. They need to pre-soak before it actually works properly. So putting it in here now, doing this job first, it means that can be soaked, drawing up that water while we're doing the other jobs. So I'll clip that back in the back there, and that's done. And I'll swing this back round now so we can see what we're doing. And I can put that jockey wheel down, and I can put the drip tray back in, and that's the water filter done, and water tank. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to address this steam wand. So with the steam wand, we need to mix up a little mixture here to clean that. And so I've got, as I said earlier, I've got a little jug full of water here, or with a cup full of water. And this sachet contains a powder that we're going to put into there. Now they say that you're meant to have hot water in here when you do this. I do things a bit different. I do it my way. What I like to do is I just start with cold water, and then I'm going to put this into this, or put the steam wand into this, and then do a normal steam cycle, and that will heat the water up. And so it's, while it's heating, it's actually flushing through the steam wand as well. So take the steam wand out like so, and we unscrew the tip. We're taking the tip right off here for this job. That just unscrews. It's a normal thread. And then inside there you can see the tip of the steam wand with the little thermometer in the bottom. I'm going to get this little thing here that I showed you earlier, and I'm just going to stick it into these four little holes in the top, or would be the bottom of that tip, because those are very important. That's where the steam comes out. And it is a feature of this machine that it has 4 holes. A lot of these steam wands on the home machines only have 1 hole. And I think that's part of the problem with them. They can't blast enough steam to give you a really good texturing of your milk. Now this has got a crust on it. I'm not sure how well you should be able to see that. It's a bit of a yellowing crust on there of milk, and that's what we want to get rid of. So what we're going to do with that is just drop that into the jug, and then I'm going to put the jug underneath the steam wand, put the steam wand in, and I'm just going to do what I would normally do to froth milk. And so that's now blasting steam out of that steam wand into that water, and it's heating it up, and it's getting a good circulation of that chemical through the water and through the steam wand. Hopefully you can still hear me over the noise of that. And that will go for, I don't know, a little while, and then it'll stop. When it gets to 65 degrees, it stops. So that's that. Now while that's going on, we can now have a look at this bean hopper up here and clean the burrs, and also clean the tamping wheel and the tamping area. So this is another clever little bit of design work that's gone on here from the Breville people. We need to get this hopper off, and how we do that, up here there's a knob inside the middle of it there, and I can turn that anti-clockwise to the lock position, the unlock position, and that unlocks it. It does 2 things in fact. Firstly, it unlocks it from the machine, but also it closes a little trap door in the bottom so that I can take this out now, and the beans are still in there. They won't fall out because of the little trap door that's now shut. So now I've got that out, what I need to do with it is empty it. So what I'm going to do is empty it into my normal canister that I store my beans in. How I do that, I just drop it in there and put it to the lock position. When I put it to the lock position, it opens the trapdoor and all the beans fall out of there. So that can just sit back there. And now I'll put this back into the machine and lock it again. And you might say, why am I doing that? Well, why I'm doing that is because there's a bunch of loose beans in the top here that we need to get out so that we can access those burrs. So if we put that back in, there's actually a interlock switch on here that stops you from running the grinder without that in there. So it has to be in there to run the grinder. And so that's why I need that like so. And now that it's there, I can take this group handle out of here, and I'm just going to wipe a bit of moisture out of that. And I can put that group handle into the grinder now, and I can hit the grind button, and that will grind through those last few beans that are in the top. And you'll hear it change pitch. Okay, so now it's whirring at very high speed because there's nothing left to grind. So that means it's time to stop that. So now if I remove this bean hopper again, and I can look in the top there, and now there's no beans in there at all. I can just see the top burr. So I then take this burr out by pulling up the little wire handle and lift the burr out, and that's the top burr. And I look inside and there's the bottom burr. So they're now ready to clean, and the brush we use for that is this long bristled brush here. And we can give this a brush. I'll do it over the sink here. Just brushing all of the loose coffee off the teeth of the burrs there. And you need to do this not very often, as I said. I only do it probably once a year. And it's really just about removing any caked on oils from the beans that have coagulated and formed something solid in there that might stop it from grinding properly. So that's the top one done. And likewise with the bottom one, the bottom one we don't take out, we just brush in there with the brush. Make sure that it's good and clean and shiny. And when we're satisfied that that's the way it is, we can then reassemble that. So we just drop that back in there, push it down and turn it clockwise to lock it using that wire handle, and then you just fold the wire handle down, and that's the job done now. I'll just wipe a little bit of muck off the top here that I've made, a bit of mess I've made. And now I can put this back in, this bean hopper, lock it into place, and now I can replace the beans. So I'm ready to make my next cup of coffee. So that's the burr grinders cleaned. And so now we're going to move down to the bottom here where we have the tamping wheel, which I've shown you before, and we get that out, it's quite easily. Oh, of course I've got some coffee in here now because I just ground out those leftover beans. I'm going to discard that because we're not going to use that. That was just some leftover beans in the top there. Give that a bit of a wipe. And so now we want to get this tamping wheel out. And you'll probably recall from my other video how that comes out. With this little brush here, there's a magnet in the handle, and we apply that magnet to the middle of the tamping wheel, and the tamping wheel comes out stuck on the magnet like that. So that's the wheel. I like to give that a bit of a clean, so I'll just whip that over to the sink and give it a bit of a wash, because again you've got some coffee stuck on there and we want that to be nice and clean. So that's that done. Give that a wipe. And that's that job done. Now, the other end of that handle, of course, has got this long brush, like a long, thin bottle brush. And that's what we use to clean the coffee out of the actual area where the tamping wheel sits. And firstly, you just brush around the outside, because that's where the coffee tends to get stuck, around the outside edge of the tamping wheel. And then what we do is we tip this back a little bit towards the back of the machine. And what you can feel when you do that is that the brush will then go back up into the chute, the little chute where the coffee falls down after it goes through the burrs, it comes down a chute and arrives in the basket. So that chute, we give that a brush as well, because there could be some coffee caked on in there as well. And that gets a little bit messy. There is coffee falling down the bottom here. I forgot, but I usually put a paper towel under that. But no matter, that's that job done. So that now covers the burrs and the tamping mechanism. That's all done. The next thing now that we need to do is we need to carry out a full clean cycle on the group head. So we start with the group handle, and what we do is we remove the double basket that I've normally got in there. For this job we just need a single basket, so that's the single basket there. We pop that into the handle like so, and then we take the cleaning disc and we put the cleaning disc into the handle, into the basket like so. Now you can probably see inside that disc is now sealing off the holes in the basket, so this creates a back pressure, and that's what the machine needs for cleaning. Also, you can see some concentric circles in the middle of that disc, and those are designed to be the right size to take one of these tablets. So inside the box here we've got a pack of 8 tablets, and we take one out of there. They look a little bit like Mylantas, if you've ever had a Mylanta, or maybe a big aspirin tablet. And that just sits in the middle, right in the middle of that disc, like so. And then we're going to put this back into the group head. Into the group head. Funny thing, it's hard to do this when you're not facing the machine, so I'm just going to turn my back to you for a moment and put it in like so. Okay, so now that's in there. I'm going to select the clean cycle from here, and then it's really simple because there's easy instructions here. It tells you that you've got to put the tablet in and all the things we've just done, and then it says push this button in the middle when you're ready to start, and it tells you that it's going to take 6.5 minutes for this cycle to run. So I'm going to push that, and that is now underway and it's doing its thing. Basically it's cleaning any of the gunked up coffee out of the lines, the water lines, and around that group head area. One thing I did want to mention in the earlier video that I forgot, I talked about the PIDs that heat up the boilers in the machine. There's also a PID that controls the temperature of the group head. So there's actually a heater in this group head that heats up the metal in there and heats up obviously the handle if the handle is in place. And so even the temperature of that basket where the coffee is being put is carefully controlled. Right, so that's done. While that's happening now, we're going to return back here to our steam wand, and that's had a bit of time to soak in there now, and it's fairly hot, that water. So I'm going to take that out of there, and I'm going to give this a bit of a wipe around here just to get all the coffee off the very tip and the little thermometer down the bottom. You can get a bit of a surprise by these sudden noises that happen when it's doing its clean cycle. Okay, and I'm going to take this over to the sink again now, and I'll tip that out, that cleaning solution, and out falls the little the little tip of the wand. And so now I can give, that's been soaking for a while, that softens up all of that caked on milk, and I can give that a bit of a clean with my normal dish cleaning sponge. And then what I like to do is put some fresh water back into this jug, because we need to give it a final rinse now on the machine to get rid of any residual chemical that might be left in there. These tablets are meant to be non-toxic. They say they are, and I'm sure they are, but I don't want to have any leftover chemical coming into my coffee, so I'm always going to give that a last rinse. So we screw that back on, like so. Like so. I'll give this a last wipe, which I might just clean this cloth a bit. And give this a good thorough wiping down, like so. And then what I do is I put this back under there, the jug, with some clean fresh water in there. And what I'll do is, when this cycle, this clean cycle on the group head is finished in about 2 minutes, then I'll run some more steam through that wand till that water in the jug heats up to 65 degrees. And that way I can be sure that any chemical that was left over, caught up in the wand, is now out. Two minutes to go on that. Okay, so that's finished its cycle there now, and it's saying ready. That's good. What I'm going to do now is just finish the job with the steam wand. One thing I did forget to do before is I forgot to put the tamping wheel back into the machine, so it won't work very well without that in there. So let's just get that in there. That just sticks there with a magnet, so that's in. I'm going to now start the milk frother, so that's putting steam into that jug and it's flushing out the chemicals and whatnot. The other thing is that there's probably a bit of chemical inside here. We need to take that cleaning disc out, so we'll take this handle out here, and you can see in here there's a bit of residual kind of frothy chemical water in there, so I'll tip that in the sink, and I'll take the disc out of there, throw that in the sink. That needs to be cleaned. But there's a bit of water and maybe a bit of chemical left in here, and there's possibly a bit of chemical left back up there inside the group head, which we really don't want coming out into our coffee. So what I will do now is I will just push the brew button and run some hot water through there, and you can see some frothiness coming out of it, so there's clearly a bit of chemical left in there. So I would let that run for probably, you know, maybe half a minute to a minute, so it's truly flushed out. We don't need to worry then about any chemicals tainting the coffee that comes out in the next brew that we make. So that'll do for that. And I would take that out. Okay, now we take this out of here, and that's just got the hot water in it now with any residual chemical, so that job's done. Steam wand's nice and clean. So now that's all nice and clean under there. And the last thing that I wanted to show you was, I mentioned earlier this orange brush, and so the last thing I would do in here is I would go around the outside where you can feel the gasket is around the top of the group head, and that's the silicon gasket that seals on the group handle, and obviously we want to make sure that that's good and clean as well. So I give that a good brushing with that stiff brush, and I can see a lot of brown stuff on there that's come off that seal. And so that's pretty much the job done for today, or jobs I should say. We've done a few things today. Don't be too concerned. As I said, you don't do them all at once normally. It's not too difficult, and it's, a small amount of toil for the benefit of having this wonderful machine. So if you've enjoyed the video, I hope you have. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them. And have a great day and enjoy your coffee.